Frame. Skip.
Get ready.
It's going to be a very, very intense journey.
Begin.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 133 of the Frame Skip podcast. I am Andie Eller, and I'm joined for the first time in a while by three of my good friends, starting off with the man who's never here, Coach, the Kyle Newman. What's up?
Nothing much, man. I told my students no tutoring today.
No tutoring
My
today.
life is more important than yours today. And as I'm walking out, two of our students in our program fought. So it's like, okay, that's why we kind of started a little late. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so good day, though. Good Tuesday.
Were they
after
fighting?
our holiday Monday?
Were they fighting because you told them you could not tutor them?
No.
Okay.
I'll teach you
probably
kids how to
happy about
math. I'll teach you kids how to math tomorrow. I gotta get home and talk about Star Wars.
There are wars to be fought at home, and I'm central to said wars.
Yes.
Speaking of wars, George, you know, there are wars on the football field. I know you're all about that. So what's going on, George, from Shortbox Summary?
I drafted Travis Kelce in the first round in so many leagues, and then I just saw like an ESPN news flash saying that like, oh yeah, he hyperextended his knee at practice today, and he's gonna go in for an MRI tomorrow. It's like, oh, that's great. I mean, he's supposed to play Thursday.
That's nice.
Yeah. See
Who
how
is
that
this?
goes. Travis Kelce.
Hmm.
It's usually pretty good.
I did pick the kicker for Kansas City. So I do have a player playing this Thursday.
Little Butker action. I got Jahmyr Gibbs in a bunch of leagues too, so hopefully the kid from Detroit pays off.
Speaking of leagues, the man that's way out of all of our leagues, Seth Slakehouse, is also here, and he's wearing a orange shirt. Is that an orange shirt, Seth, or is that a red shirt?
This is a red shirt
Okay.
from the Stray Sheep from a little video game you may have heard of called Catherine.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, got this at PAX East 2013.
Nice. Piece of
Probably my
history.
favorite shirt of all time. Yeah. 10 years old, still hanging together. I really should look into who made this shirt because I have worn this shirt to death. I mean, I've worn this shirt like all time.
Yeah.
And I love it.
How many
One of my favorite
craps
games.
have you taken wearing that shirt?
I don't know. George, I almost called you George Coach.
I know.
More than 10.
Okay.
You think that has damaged that shirt in any way?
Like today?
Yeah. I mean,
More than 10 today?
well, yeah.
Big day.
Yesterday was Labor Day. Went to a picnic. And a lot of things going on.
Big day.
Big day in the land of plumbing and sewage in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Let me just say that.
That macaroni salad sitting out in the sun for 5 hours will do it to you.
Yeah. I think it was the week-old pizza that I ate out of my refrigerator yesterday. I think that's what got me. But other than that, I'm doing really good. I got my Reaper to level 80 today in Final Fantasy, so I'm real excited about that. And I'm gonna hit 81 next. So that's
awesome.
Generally what comes after 80. So
Shortly after that, one might even say you're going to hit 82.
you could surmise that. Yeah.
Yeah, the hit critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV that everybody should be playing right now. But we are not talking about that
No.
on this episode. We are continuing where we left off last week with our Star Wars sequel trilogy rewatch revisitation here with the finale of the 9 episodes, episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, which Seth's clearly ready for. He's, if you're not watching the video, he has a lightsaber in hand. He's got a clone trooper
Shit.
helmet on his head.
That's not just a clone trooper.
Who is it?
Bro, that's the
Ahsoka.
501st, bro.
That's Ahsoka's troopers, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Because they split off. Sorry if you haven't seen that episode yet, but
I haven't seen that yet, so I'm very distraught right now.
I-
But I'm just gonna keep chugging along.
I had to mute the mic because otherwise the lightsaber would probably blow all your eardrums out. So
Can I go get one of my helmets?
and,
Or is it
no
too
one's
late?
stopping.
I mean,
Too late.
what's funny is like in high school, I was the nerdiest person in my friend group at all times, right? Because like I liked comics, I liked Star Wars, I liked video games. And like there were people who liked video games, but they were still like cooler than me and liked video games. This podcast, man, I'm not the nerdiest person on this podcast. It feels great. Thanks, Seth. Love you, bud.
Hey, listen, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I was a closet nerd all through high school.
I was an out in the open nerd all through high
Yeah.
school. We should actually do like a high school episode one of these days when we don't have anything to talk about.
Bro.
I'm thinking late December.
Yes.
I've also got.
Seth is finding something. He's finding
Also
something.
has the longest
getting?
cord ever
I
for his
think-
headset. Very nice.
I think I showed you guys this, right? Like, cause
Yeah.
Caitlin got me this for my birthday. Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
This is the other 501st helmet.
Is that Rex?
Yes, this is Rex. So pretty sweet. Pretty sweet.
Do you ever think
Coach-
about
Coach
just
is
like
Had enough.
do you do you ever think about just going out with that on, walking the streets, just enjoying life?
No.
Okay.
Despite the massive visor on both of them, the visibility is extremely low. Oh,
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
and there's the man with the First Order helmet.
Wow.
Non-canon, but loves the First Order.
From the hit movie Star Wars Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker, which we're talking about on this episode, came out, gosh, when was it? 2019. December 2019. So it actually hasn't been that long. It's only been
Feels
about
like yesterday.
3.5 years, almost 4 years.
Actually, I take that back. The Rise of Skywalker feels like it came out a decade ago. I mean,
It does.
so much has happened since then.
That was right before COVID, right before the pandemic started, just a few months before. So, which is
No, it's actually when the pandemic started, because I remember this was when I was hosting pub trivia, and every other team name was like coronavirus and Lyme. Like it was just like all these puns about COVID. And like I had to put a moratorium on COVID related names because I was so sick, because like everyone just made like the same 5 jokes every week in pub trivia. And I was like, yeah, you can do it. I'm just never gonna choose you for winning best team name. So that's just like a round of shots you're just giving up. And I remember like leaving pub trivia to go see this movie.
nice.
Yeah, good shit.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about it. Last week we started off with kind of our broad thoughts and then went into the kind of a general overview of the plot, touching on different plot points on the way. So let's start with that again. And Coach, I want to start with you since you were not on last episode. What do you think just overall about Star Wars Episode 9?
Ooh, it is a mess. Like story-wise, it was just a mess. Disappointing, but what's funny is like the first 24, 48 hours, it didn't really sink in, right? All the issues, because it looked nice, it looked good. The one thing that got me that was the Death Star sitting in the ocean. That I thought that was the coolest looking, scene, right? You see part of it, but as you watch it again, you just realize that just what a mess. It was a mess from the beginning to the end. That's my initial thoughts.
George, what about you?
I'm kind of with Coach. I think so much of this movie is good, but I don't know if it's necessarily a good movie. And I rewatched it, finished it probably an hour ago. Was when I finally rolled credits on it. It was better than I was expecting it to be, and there's so many just cool scenes. I'm not going to get into it because we're going to go through it. But I think I said this on the last podcast we did about The Last Jedi, where it's like, man, if this shit was on mute and you could just like kind of make up your own details to it, I think it's great. Like if they recut a bunch of these scenes and made like, how they would like recut Dragon Ball Z and make AMVs on YouTube. Like if you could AMV the shit out of this movie and like it would look really good set to music. Although the John Williams score is better than I remember. I thought he phoned it in. I think we talked about that on a previous podcast, but I like the little modifications he makes to Rey's theme throughout. That was easily a highlight. But no, it was better than I remember. Not nearly as important to me as the previous movies were to younger me. That's I think I can officially say that's a me thing, not a Star Wars thing. And it took some swings and it took some shortcuts. And I like the swings and I hate the shortcuts.
Seth?
Yeah, I remember when I went to the theater, I walked away from this feeling extremely positive because it was such a slap in the face to The Last Jedi. And then, when I remember watching it and being like, this is moving pretty quick, isn't it? And like I was telling you guys when we were talking about it earlier today, it's definitely reeks of like 2 or maybe even 3 movies like absolutely just smashed together. And desperation to make a coherent ending to this trilogy. I agree with the sentiment though that there is a lot of really cool scenes and a lot of really cool things introduced in this movie that they really missed out by expanding upon more. For instance, Poe's girlfriend in the movie, what's her name? Zoe?
Zora Bliss.
Zora Bliss, yeah. She's like a really cool character, and you learn nothing about her in this movie.
Nope.
And it just comes out of nowhere, pops up at the end again, and that's it. It's like, okay.
I had to tweet that out today when I was rewatching it. I was like, what is the point of having Kerry Russell in your movie if you're not going to do a goddamn thing with her? She is excellent. She's such a good actress, and she just does nothing except she just sounds cool. She just looks cool, which most of the time is enough. But like, come on, man. Like you went back to like all the old Star Wars shit, and I feel like you just didn't do a good job of like filling up the coffers for the next generation. And like this character could have been something for the next generation.
Well, that was something that I walked away from this movie thinking was that like shot for shot, I think this feels a lot like classic Star Wars. Like when you're going through and watching it in the scenes, and like there's a lot to really like about this movie, I think, but they just don't fit together. And I think that if Disney had the foresight to release apparently there was almost a 4-hour cut of this movie that they cut down to, was it 2 hours and 23 minutes?
Yeah.
And you can really feel it. But I'd be really interested to see what was in that 4-hour cut, because I think a little more length would have made a huge difference in this movie.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I kind of pretty much agree with everything you guys said. Like Seth mentioned, when I remember when I watched this in the theater, I walked out thinking, man, that movie was fantastic. And for me, it hasn't aged quite as well. Rewatching it, I think this is the first time I've ever rewatched it. I don't think I ever watched it again after watching it in the theater. I just basically what you guys said is spot on. I mean, I feel like parts of this movie feel like they were written by ChatGPT. I mean, we were just talking about that off air beforehand. Like, it just feels at times, frankly, like a bunch of nonsense. The overall like scenes, the visuals, and what you mentioned, Seth, it feeling like a Star Wars movie, I agree with, but it's just really what it comes down to for me here. Like, the biggest problem is just the writing is frankly all over the place. I mean, there are just constant plot holes even within the movie. I mean, not even referencing 7 and 8. There are plot holes that just pop up all over the place for no reason at all. So I think it's fine. I don't think it's bad, but of the sequel trilogy, personally, it's my least favorite. So,
dude, as far as the plot holes go, like one of the main like points of the movie with the dagger doesn't even make sense.
No.
This ancient Sith dagger that somehow lines up with the wreckage of the Death Star on this random planet. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all.
They
Like,
just knew it was going to be there thousands of years later.
Yeah, it's a completely nonsense. Like, it feels like a first grader wrote it. Honestly, it's like, oh, this is sweet, like a dagger, Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
And it had to be right in that exact spot. Too,
yes.
Right. So it's just.
Yeah. Okay. Your points are well met. I completely understand that shit is ridiculous. However, how much does that really matter? I gotta be honest.
I mean, I feel like it matters a whole lot.
It bothered me quite a bit.
Random dagger, just it doesn't make sense. Like the Death Star blew up 20 years ago at this point, and this dagger that's an ancient Sith dagger from thousands of years ago, it just so happens to line up, and like it's the perfect. And by the way, what did the dagger even do?
I thought it was modified by Ochi of Bestoon. I thought that was the whole point of the dagger.
But
maybe.
Now I just watched it earlier. What did the dagger even do? What was the point of the dagger?
Pointed at when they lined it up, the little attachment and the hilt expanded out and pointed at where the wayfinder is in the wreckage.
Okay.
That doesn't.
That's why I don't think
it gets destroyed.
Like I think it's a modified ancient dagger. I don't think they like foretold the Death Star crashing thousands of years in the future.
I guess.
But at the same time, though, why would you know what? We'll talk about this later. Let's get into the plot, if that's good with you guys. Unless you guys have any more broad.
Yeah, no, let's go. Let's send it
here. All right. So this. Okay. For me, this is issue number 1 with this movie. It just starts off with Palpatine's back. Like 0 to 60 for no reason whatsoever. That's literally how the movie opens.
It felt like they drew straws to figure out who was going to be the person to say the dumbest fucking line in the movie, too.
Somehow, Palpatine returned.
The opening is like the opening crawl literally says, and I can't remember exactly the text, but it's like the dead speak or something like that.
Yeah.
And
that is actually what it says. The dead speak. The galaxy just heard a mysterious broadcast, a threat of revenge in the voice of the Emperor Palpatine. What do you mean a mysterious broadcast? Like everyone in the galaxy just heard it, or like did it come across the radios? You know, what does that mean?
I think that's what it's saying.
They were all watching TV and they just saw Palpatine pop up for a second there.
Before we even get into like the whole somehow Palpatine has returned part, like this is actually where I disagree with Seth about like how this feels like an old Star Wars movie. I think this movie does way too much shit that doesn't feel like Star Wars, but like I'm trying to decide how I really feel about it. Where like in the opening scene, you see Kylo Ren just like on some planet just mowing people down, right? And like it does a whole bunch of like slow motion jumps, right? Where like all of a sudden it's like regular speed and then it slows down when he's doing like a killing stroke or something. And then it's like basically a montage from there where it's like showing him doing that into him traveling through the unknown regions or whatever, and then going to Exegol. And like, I'm like, that's not very Star Wars. Like they do like really weird, like, you know, wipes across the screen or like, you know, center pullouts or whatever. Like they don't do super advanced filmmaking shit because it's supposed to feel like something from the 30s. And I feel like this movie is not the prettiest movie. I think we established, or at least I established that, like in my opinion, that was The Last Jedi. I just think that movie has like the best art direction of any of these new sequel trilogy movies. And this one's probably like the best shot action movie, but like I don't think it feels inherently Star Wars because of all the advancements that they acknowledge. And I feel bad for saying that because I'm like, yeah, you should be moving forward. But my God, not this much.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like this is really, I mean, it just starts on a bad note for me in hindsight. I mean, there's no, and I know that this is all the at the end of the day, Disney did not have a plan for these movies, and that's really what it comes down to. And that is so evident when there is literally no build up to Palpatine whatsoever in the first 2 movies. And suddenly it's just like, oh, he's here. He's the big bad guy. It doesn't make sense. I mean, which clearly it's not supposed to. He's just there for the sake of being there. And it just starts off poorly for me in that way. And it's a big issue I have with this movie in general. I really don't think Palpatine should have been in this movie in any sense, personally. So
sorry, I cut out there for a second. I just wanted to chime in and say this planet that Kylo Ren starts out on is Mustafar. Did you guys know that?
Really?
They
don't make that clear.
It's Mustafar. Yeah, no, I forget. It was either the novelization or something, but yeah, this is Mustafar. And they never reference that, and they never say that, and that's a really important planet.
Yeah,
you'd think you would want that known.
Do you think they don't because it looks nothing at all like Mustafar, and there's no explanation for why it shifted from being like a lava planet to a weird ashy graveyard.
Well, I assumed it was just a different part of the planet. That's what I assumed.
I thought it was lava everywhere. Never got a great indication from George Lucas that it wasn't.
All right, so this opening
on
sequence,
me.
like we're talking about here, Kylo Ren is kind of doing his own deal. He has this Sith Wayfinder, which is very important because it'll point people to Exegol, which is this planet where Palpatine has been hiding out, essentially, you know, creating his new army of Star Destroyers, and he unveils this whole plan to create the quote-unquote Final Order, which, can I just say, what a stupid freaking name. And he also unveils to Kylo Ren that he created Snoke. And finally, kind of the ending of this sequence, he asks, or orders rather, Kylo to go and kill Rey. So what do we think? I mean, there's so much to unpack here, honestly, just in this opening sequence. I think, let me ask you guys this. Coach, what do you think about the whole thing now, 4 or 5 years later, of Palpatine creating Snoke as a plot point?
I think it's quick and easy. I think it was something that they were able to come up with that would fit in such a small amount of time with what they were given with episodes 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Right? Because they had Snoke, and there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of excitement about Snoke after The Force Awakens. Like, who is this guy, right?
There was.
And then all of a sudden, he gets sliced in half, right? In the second movie. And then now it's I don't know. I think it was just bad writing. I think it was just as bad. And Seth, you'll agree with me here, as when they put Leia in Ben's little jacket going through the little base. Like, it's just bad writing. It was bad writing.
But the difference was that was purposefully comedic. This is just,
I don't think that was supposed to be purposely comedic.
You don't think so?
No, I think it was just bad writing. But anyways,
Okay.
it was like they used it because they knew it would get the old fans excited. They used Palpatine to get everybody on board.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, and I think
that's
I think this was retcon number 1, frankly, with Snoke. I think it was a matter of everyone was complaining, like, why would they kill Snoke so easily in episode 8? How did this happen so quickly? And to me, the way I read it is JJ was like, oh, well, he died easily because he was just a pawn. Like, he didn't really matter, which is so disappointing to me. But after the fact, though, they didn't confirm this in the movie. Didn't they confirm that Snoke is essentially like a false clone of...
Like a failed clone of Palpatine.
Yeah.
Did we talk about that last week?
I can't remember.
I thought that was I think we did. Because there was a discussion on whether Palpatine was like controlling him or if he was his own individual. And he was his own individual with false memories and everything implanted in him.
Okay. And then just to confirm, I know we'll talk about this later, but while we're on this topic, Rey's father is also a clone of Palpatine, correct?
Yeah, a failed one. But
man, I like the idea of Palpatine, Sheev just going around the galaxy, just banging out,
laying his pipe.
Space pipe.
If I remember correctly, and I forget where this was too, I think Rey's father was not a force sensitive clone. He was just like a clone that didn't have the force sensitivity. So that's why they kind of kicked him to the curb.
Is it too late to say Emperor Palpatine?
Palpatine.
Which, by the way, again, key point here, the stuff that we're talking about, never mentioned in the movie.
Right.
Never mentioned at all.
I think it's the novelization where a lot of this information comes from.
Yeah. So, just anybody have any additional thoughts on that opening sequence?
Just dumb. Just really dumb. Like Palpatine's just sitting there waiting for him to show up. And who are the people there? Who are they?
Exactly.
What is the deal with that?
Yeah,
You know?
did they? That's never explained? I wasn't sure about that. The people that are like in the crowd, sitting near him. Is that what
I
you're
remember there's
talking
like some
about?
sort of like explanation in one of the art books or something of like a little like paragraph of who these people are, but I don't.
Well,
It made
It's
no
so
sense.
dumb.
should have been
Yeah.
explained in the movie if they were pertinent in any way. So
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it shifts along there with Poe and Finn, getting some intelligence from who they understand as a spy in the First Order, basically explaining what I just explained, that Palpatine's on Exegol, and pretty interesting. It sets up a plot point that'll come up later on with the spy. And then
This scene is awesome.
it is. It's shot really well. Well, I shouldn't even say shot because it's all CGI, but the way it plays out is really well done, in my opinion.
Which scene?
Where they're on like that little ice. It's not even like a planet. It's like a
No, it's like an asteroid or something, ice mining or something, water mining, and then it's like goes like the chase throughout the facility, right, and then into like the light speed skipping.
yeah.
Did you like the light speed skipping?
I did, yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was cool too. What don't you
I
like about
guess-
it, Coach?
That you have to have coordinates and shit, right?
Right,
It made
that's
it
why
look
it was so
cool.
dangerous, right?
Mm,
That's why it's like you can't light speed skip, and he's like, "Well, I just did it."
yeah, I wasn't fond of it, but that's just me.
Yeah. So, and again, keep in mind, I'm kind of skimming along here. So if there's anything in between these plot points that anybody has any interest in talking about, just bring it up and we can make sure we hit it. But
No,
Af-
just
go ahead.
just want to say that one planet in the skipping, that was Cloud City, right?
I think
So
so.
like Bespin, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
that was my understanding.
Which makes sense because they show it later in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought it was pretty
Right,
cool
yeah.
that's like nice little callback.
So obviously Rey is kind of aware of this whole situation, and she starts to read some of, I guess, what are Luke's notes about a Sith wayfinder that can take them to Exegol. And eventually, I think it's like in his notes or something, he talks in Luke's notes, he talks about how he last left off his trail to find a Sith wayfinder on Pisana. And so Rey, Finn, Poe, Chewbacca, BB-8, C-3PO, they all head that way. And do they ever explain in any way whatsoever why Luke would even be looking for this thing?
No, but I just assumed it was because he was trying to like eliminate all. I don't know. Like he's the only person examining like ancient like Force user relics,
true.
right? So
That's true.
I just kind of assumed he was like trying to get as much information as possible.
Did you guys ever play Battlefront 2, the campaign?
Yep.
Okay, so
bit.
remember when he met up with the one guy who turned good, and he went to that one world and he got that relic, that Sith relic.
Yeah.
I think that's what he was doing during that time, was just going around trying to search for like different relics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm trying to figure out why this plot worked so well in the expanded universe and it doesn't work in this context. And I just feel like, is there more of a higher expectation for writing in movies, you think? Because this is almost cool. Palpatine returns in the old content as well.
Dark
And no one
Empire.
really batted an eye. It's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But now like somehow Palpatine returned is like a joke, right? So I don't know.
I think because it was written in books, right?
Yeah.
People felt like they gave it more of a pass.
Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know. But I get what you're saying.
For me, I think the big issue here, like I mentioned at the top of the show, is like this is the grand finale of the whole series, quote unquote. At least the Skywalker saga, as they call it, and like it just comes out of nowhere. That's my biggest problem. Is just it doesn't build the way that I feel like it should have personally.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. So I also think there's a huge thing where it's like, at least for me as a kid, like I was able to understand that like the movies were real, like the movies were what mattered, and like the comics, the games, that was all like extra, and like I kind of treated that like a what if. I was like, oh, this is like what most likely happened, like between the movies, after the movies, all that stuff. And so I think also at that point in time, we were just so hard up for Star Wars shit, and I think we talked about this when we were trying to read through the Light of the Jedi book, like when it first came out. But like, so much of Star Wars to me is seeing it and just like seeing the crazy world and all the cool shit that's there. So, like the comics were huge to me as a kid. Like that was what got me into comic books, was the Dark Empire comic series. Just like seeing that at the grocery store and like begging for it because it said Star Wars. And I don't know. I think you're right. I think it is like a higher bar for live action stuff because that's supposed to feel real. That's supposed to be what's important.
So just a couple quick comments before, because where'd we leave off on them going out to find the Sith Wayfinder, right?
yeah, we haven't really gotten to the planet yet.
Okay. As far as I know, and I really tried to figure this out, I think when they land the Millennium Falcon and Poe comes out and talks to Rey, that is the first on-screen conversation Poe has with Rey in Episode 9. They don't talk at all or have any sort of communication in Episode 7 or 8. I think this is the first time they talk, they even have a conversation in the sequel trilogy.
No,
Really
I
weird.
think they got into an argument when they went to the main base after they were skip jumping or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what he's talking about, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about when they were at the.
So we've got this main
outside.
trilogy of characters, or the cast of characters, 3 of them, right? And 2 of them, this is the first time they have any sort of conversation whatsoever. And I'm almost positive about that because I ran through the timeline in my head when I was watching this, and I'm like, I can't think of a single other conversation they've had before this. I think that's really weird. The next thing I wanted to comment on was the training scene with Rey and Leia. As far as I know, was cut content from Episode 7 that they repurposed to use in Episode 9.
I think you're right, actually, because in hindsight, and I should have brought this up, this is the first movie that was filmed following Carrie Fisher's death, so I know that they used a bunch of unused footage and old footage from Episode 7 for this movie, and I want to say you're correct that they confirmed that entire sequence was unused from Episode 7.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because if we had Leia training Rey in Episode 7, a whole lot more of the sequel trilogy would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah. And I will say this too. I mean, obviously you can't control somebody's passing in real life, but I will tell you that there are times throughout this movie where I felt some of the stuff with Carrie Fisher was very strange. I mean, you could tell. I think it's even right before they go to Pisana. There's a whole conversation she has with Rey, and you can tell it's reused footage because it's like her responses don't really make sense, and Leia's, and she's just kind of there. And I don't know. I don't know how to feel about her presence in this movie. I mean, I know they were trying to keep her in for the sake of, like, I don't know, I guess not killing her off screen in the following of Carrie Fisher's passing, but I still felt very awkward, I guess, at times, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, in the whole sequel trilogy, Carrie Fisher's presence and acting feels odd, especially in Episode 7. I feel like they were really working around her in Episode 7, and it's nothing against her. It's just she hadn't acted in what, years, right? So
yeah.
So and she was sick at the time, and she wasn't coming off like her old self. Like Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill are both very, you know, healthy and good actors, and Carrie Carrie Fisher just wasn't up to that level because she hadn't done anything in Hollywood. I don't think she did anything in Hollywood since like the 80s, right?
No, she done random shit. Like she was,
But
she was on like an episode of 30 Rock as like Liz's like mentor for an episode when she was supposed to be like some writer from the 70s or whatever. Like she would do like little bit parts like that, and then obviously like so many random cameos just for like Star Wars related shit.
right.
You know, like I think she and Billy D. Williams were both in that movie Fanboys, which if you guys haven't seen it, we should actually maybe talk about that movie for this podcast too. Where it's about those friends who try to break into Skywalker Ranch to steal a copy of Episode 1 before it's released.
I've never
seen it.
I always count that in my Star Wars marathon. Like I watch that before I watch Episode 1. It's not very good, but I really like it.
It's like the Rogue One of the prequel trilogy.
Kinda, yeah. Actually, now that you put it like that, yeah.
But I just wanted to point those two things out because I think it's very weird that Oscar Isaac doesn't have a scene with Daisy Ridley until Episode 9.
It is.
And also, I think it's very weird that they had training footage of Rey and Leia from Episode 7 that they didn't use until Episode 9 because everyone complained about how Rey just had this magical ability to use Force, and it would have made a whole lot more sense in Episode 7. Like, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
You know, who is overseeing these projects? Anyway, continue, Austin. I'm sorry.
No, that's
for
so true
derailing.
though, because it would have set up her abilities far better. I mean, it just would have made sense from a character building standpoint. Anyway. Yeah, so they go to Pisana. This is kind of that like desert planet. There's like a huge like festival or something going on when they show up. My favorite line is Poe telling Chewie, "Keep your head down," because there are First Order, people patrols everywhere. Meanwhile, everybody else is just nonchalantly walking with their standard like resistance clothing on. But he, for some reason, decides to single out Chewie for no reason whatsoever, aside from the fact that he's tall. So
he's fucking 8 feet tall, man. I think that's why.
So this is, I just want to say right off the bat, like I love this part of the movie in Pisana. I think it's so cool. It feels very Star Warsy to me. I love the banter between the main characters, especially when they're in the cave and like Finn is trying to say something to Rey. We're assuming that he's trying to confess his love for Rey. I don't know. It's what it came off to me. And Poe's like, we're waiting for a moment when Poe's not here. Is that what we're doing now at the end of the world? Keeping secrets? I'm like, that's awesome. That's hilarious.
it was a good line.
Yeah.
I love the native species on that planet, how they were like animatronic, like aardvarks kind of, right? Like without like a long snout. That's one thing I do have in this movie is the creature design and the fact that it is. And like I'm not shitting on Last Jedi for this or Force Awakens for this because I actually do think they did a good job of like doing practical effects, but no other movie gives a shit about practical effects, so I especially want to shout that out here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so this is where Kylo to me this is a plot hole. I don't know if you guys read it this way, but this is where Kylo once again, just like in Episode 8, once they're on this planet, uses his apparent Force bond with Rey to figure out her location when he reaches out and grabs a necklace that she's wearing that was just given to her by one of those native people on the planet and pulls it through their bond and somehow grabs it himself and keeps it. And they're able to, I guess, identify the location. I don't know if I should be reading it this way or if it even matters, but the whole Force bond thing doesn't make sense to me if it was Snoke's doing, but now Snoke is gone, unless like Palpatine just was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it again." I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but
I don't mean to just step in here. I don't understand what this movie was doing with the Force. Listen, like I'm a huge fan of the expanded universe, right? And all these things that happen in this movie are part of the expanded universe, like Force healing and all the nonsense, right? The teleportation of items and stuff, but like it doesn't make sense with what we've seen of Star Wars previously in the cinematic sense, in a new canon especially. Like the Force healing that Rey uses just comes out of nowhere, and Rey learned what she learned right from Leia and Luke, and Luke learned from limited training with Yoda and presumably Ghost of Kenobi and stuff like that. One of my biggest issues with modern Star Wars is the disrespect to the world building and lore, and you cannot have the Republic of like the Jedi, right, not be able to force heal, and then all of a sudden Rey shows up 6 movies later, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I just no big deal, just like transferred some of my life force to him, just like a little bit of essence there. Don't worry about it." It's like, hey man, that's a big deal. Where did that come from? You know, is this just like an innate ability you have, or what's going on here? Because she uses it 3 times throughout the movie, and it doesn't make sense. And then Kylo can use it later on, but we'll get to there.
Yeah.
But it's like a really big deal if you care about like the world building of Star Wars, and it doesn't. It just comes out of nowhere. So I just want to say that, and also the Dryad thing. They're the Force Dryad. That's the pairing that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere as well, and it's never explained other than the Sith Eternal, which are those people that worship Palpatine. They were experimenting with like that, I guess, but yeah, and that's never expanded upon either. So I don't know. Coach, you're pretty quiet over there, buddy. What do you think of force healing as an old school fan?
Well, the fact that was one of my biggest issues is out of nowhere she can do this, you know. And again, to me, that's just bad writing. Like, we don't see how she learned. I don't care if she knows it, but at least have some backstory on that. Show us something where at the beginning she's training and possibly she's trying to heal someone but can't, and they pass or something like that. And so when she does it, we're excited because she can actually, you know, she got over the hump, that whatever it was stopping her. But we didn't get that. It's just like, you know, she starts out OP and there's no issues. Everything comes so easy to her, right?
And she's like, boop, just did that. Don't worry about it. Boop. Healed that thing.
I forget if this line comes up before when Kylo goes and talks to Palpatine, or if it's later on. I know there's a part where Kylo's like standing on his ship and he somehow converses with Palpatine like through the Force or something. But Palpatine says a line to him, you know, because obviously, again, he's asking Kylo to go kill her. He says, "She'll never be a Jedi." But I'm like, we're talking about all this Force stuff and like seeing her abilities in this movie. Dude, she literally already is one. Like, she's fully powered, like stronger than almost every other Jedi we've ever seen on screen. So
yeah. No, like, imagine if Anakin could use Force Heal, right? Like, trilogy solved. You know, not a big deal.
That's true.
So maybe he couldn't because he wasn't as good of a Jedi as Rey. I think that's what we're.
That's
all
true. He was
easy, buddy. You're gonna light the fan base aflame.
The ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn is stirring,
dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue along here. So they're on this desert planet. They're picking up where Luke left off, trying to find this Sith Wayfinder, and they get some help from Lando Calrissian, who shows up out of nowhere on this planet. Why is he there? I don't know. I know he was helping Luke there find the Sith Wayfinder. Did he get trapped there and just never left? That's kind of what it seems like.
Didn't he say that Leia sent him a message that they could use help?
Yeah, he does say that in the tent.
So that's the problem. Like, that's why I don't like this movie, is because like you didn't fucking watch it. I think is the problem. Also.
But there's the problem. The problem though, George, is like he can say that, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been on the planet already. I don't know.
I mean, he looks like it looks like it's fucking Burning Man in outer space, and like good Burning Man, not like 2023 Burning Man, like top tier Burning Man. It's what Fire Festival was supposed to be. And if we know anything about Lando.
Yeah,
fucks everything.
That's a good point.
You know, like he'll
party. Lando likes to party.
So they become aware of this dagger. They go find it. That's where the Force healing comes up for the first time with this little underground worm thing. Rey heals this worm and it goes away, and then they get this dagger. And this is where it's unveiled that C-3PO can read it, but he can't tell anybody what it says. Because it's written in, I forget what they call it, ancient Sith language.
Yeah, he's forbidden to translate. I kind of
Dude.
love this. I know it's stupid, but I kind of love this.
I know. I actually somewhat enjoy that plot point. I was like, oh, that's mildly amusing.
Yeah.
And he throws in too. He's like, I forget what the exact line is, but he says something about ever since the Old Republic, droids have not been allowed to
Mhm.
translate this language or something. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting reference. I like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's so funny because he's like, yeah, I know exactly what it says. I know where we need to go, but I can't tell you.
yeah,
It's like it's classic.
that's
like,
that's
punch
classic
him.
3PO, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So that all goes down. They're trying to basically get out because I forget if they've already talked about it at this point, but they're going to go to another planet and basically, or you know what? No, that hasn't happened yet. They're trying to get out so that they can get to the Wayfinder, and they're about to get on this little side ship, but Rey senses Kylo on the way, and so she kind of gets out and walks into the desert, and I think it's I forget. I think it's Poe tells Chewie to go tell Rey to get back inside the ship, and they're just gonna leave. Well, Chewie goes and gets himself captured, and Rey decides to have a one-on-one with the TIE fighter. Which
this scene is so cool, dude. It really is.
Okay, it's cool, but I just gotta say, literally 2 minutes before the desert scene, Kylo's talking to Rey, and he says, I wrote this down, I'll bring you to the dark side. And he specifically says, like, I'm not going to kill you. Yet, he's just absolutely plowing at her with the freaking TIE fighter with, like, no attempt to stop whatsoever. So, that was kind of a plot hole, in my opinion.
I don't know if it was a plot hole so much as, like, he wanted to see what she was going to do, maybe.
He says it later in the movie. He was pushing her, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
But what happened after that, like, it exploded and he walks out like,
dude, yeah.
Oh, he's Kylo Ren. He's the coolest guy in Star Wars.
He's fine.
He's the second most powerful Jedi after Rey. Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely. Dude, but this scene when she like starts running in the same direction and then jumps over and like slices the wing, so cool. Like, why didn't she have more cool stuff like this happen instead of like the dumb stuff? I mean, I think like this particular scene is like, in my opinion, probably the coolest scene Rey has in the entire trilogy. Like this is like a really quality scene, and I love it. And you know what? I actually love this whole sequence that happens in the next 5 minutes or so. I think it's pretty interesting. I know a lot of people hate it, so keep on.
Yeah. So what you're discussing here is, it appears as though the First Order is taking Chewie in a prisoner ship up to their Star Destroyer, I guess, and Rey attempts to use the Force and hold on to that ship and pull it back down so that they can't take Chewie. Well, Kylo's also doing his own little thing over there with the Force on that ship, and eventually it ends up with Rey for the first time using Force lightning, hitting the ship, and it just absolutely exploding. And of course, everybody thinks Chewie's dead. And that's kind of how all that goes. So, they eventually do get off the planet, though, and that's kind of how that set piece wraps up.
Dude, Chewbacca was definitely supposed to die here.
He was.
That was definitely the original, and they definitely went back and rewrote it. Yes, there's no way. That's one of my biggest problems with this movie is that like nothing matters, right?
Nothing. It doesn't commit to anything.
Every consequence they set up is immediately rejected, and that's super annoying.
Well, that and everything set up in The Last Jedi was also like immediately rejected. And like he could say like, yeah, I love that because like fuck Rian Johnson or whatever. But like it waters down just the brand in general. If like you're willing to commit something to film, and then all of a sudden a year later, like, oh, I was wrong. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, this is actually what's happening. You know, like I just think it shows like a complete lack of confidence in what's supposed to be the most recognizable, the most important IP of the last 60 years.
Well, I mean, there was just so clearly no oversight to any of this anyway. So it's very odd because you have two directors here that are consistently giving middle fingers to each other. And I just feel like, where was the oversight? Where was the overall plan? Where was anything? So yeah, that I don't know, man.
I was texting you guys earlier. Another big problem I have just on that note that we haven't mentioned yet is, and it because it's not really brought up, is the fact that when Rey first appears, she's like in her training sequence earlier on in the movie, and she has still Anakin's lightsaber, the blue lightsaber that split in half into a
It's repaired.
bunch of pieces in the last movie during like a pivotal moment, and it's fine. It's fine. No issues.
Yeah, fuck Ryan Johnson, right?
No issues. Yeah.
What I want to know is where Luke's green lightsaber is, and
Right?
why no one went back for that.
Right.
That's the cooler lightsaber.
She even was back freaking on the planet he was on, and
Yeah.
it's just gone. I don't know.
We know it's aerodynamic because R2 shot out of the top of his dome. That was really cool.
That was really cool.
Okay, so we're talking about Chewbacca, and again, speaking of not committing, I wrote this down. Chewbacca, quote unquote, dies at 41 minutes into the movie. He is alive at 43 minutes into the movie.
Was that true? It was really only 2 minutes.
It was literally 2 minutes apart that he, quote unquote, dies and reappears.
Well, dude,
it's not great.
One of the things that really bothers me about the Chewbacca death is Rey screams and she's upset about it, but she's upset about it to the point where it's like, well, having a pretty bad day at work. You know, like she's that level of upset. And they pretty much are just like, yeah, we can't let Chewie sacrifice himself for nothing, you know?
Mhm.
And then they just move on. And I'm like, okay, this is Chewbacca, you know, like
Show some fucking respect.
So we get to another planet here because, again, when Chewie is taken, he is brought on board a Star Destroyer. He is revealed to be alive, but he is a prisoner of the New Order. So he is not with the rest of the crew. And so they also, the New Order also stole that dagger that they had literally just found that is supposed to be key to finding this Sith Wayfinder. So C-3PO, as we mentioned, unveils, well, I know where it is. I just can't tell you. And so they decide to take him to Kijimi, rather, where they are aware of a droid smith who this Wikipedia article does not name, which is a shame, because his name is Babu Frick.
The funniest part of the whole movie. Like,
Yes.
he was such a fun character.
Babu Frick is probably like one of the best things to come from this movie, and I'm not joking. Like his race is just very amusing to me, and I loved what they did with him in Mandalorian season 3 as well.
Well, yeah, it was his spot in Mandalorian season 3 was also funny.
It was.
You know,
It was.
when Baby Yoda gave him that hug. Was it the hug he gave him?
Yeah.
They keep
No baby,
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
So they all go there, and this is where I think you mentioned this earlier on, George. They meet, or Seth, you may have mentioned this too. They meet Poe's old compadre. I forget her name.
Zora Bliss.
Zora Bliss. There you go. But they meet her, and of course they meet Babu Frick, and they go and hack into C-3PO essentially, and they get him to read off the location of the Wayfinder. So, and they find out that it's on a moon near Endor, which of course is immediately brought up as like, well, that's where something big happened before. Of course, being the final kind of sequence of episode 6. So,
Can I just say, I didn't realize that it was not the Endor that we saw in episode 6 originally. And I was devastated when I saw this movie because I thought what happened was the Death Star wreckage crashed on Endor
dude,
and completely wiped out all life. And that is what that planet looks like. I'm like,
imagine
oh my
that.
God.
That would have been awesome.
There's a comic that talks about that. I believe it's called Apocalypse Endor.
Oh, really?
Apocalypse Now. Yeah, and that always, like, the etymology of that scene always confused me as a kid. I was like, wait, the forest moon of Endor, does that mean the moon is called Endor, or is it a forest moon of the planet Endor? That was the part, like, even as, like, a third grader, I was, like, a grammar weirdo, and I was like, wait a second. Where is the shield generator?
Yeah. So during this whole sequence with the dagger and finding the Sith Wayfinder and whatnot, this is where it's unveiled that or rather, hold on, let me go back. I missed a point here. They get the data from C-3PO thanks to Babu Frick, and then they get up to a First Order Star Destroyer because they are trying to save Chewbacca. I honestly, I'm not sure. Why were they going to the Star Destroyer? I can't remember that plot point. I honestly
I don't
can't
know.
recall. I
The movie
honestly don't know.
makes no sense, so it doesn't matter.
I was thinking it was to save Chewbacca, but they didn't know he was alive at that point. So I have no idea why
Doesn't
they
Ray
were going
doesn't Ray find out? Like, don't they think that like Kylo Ren's chamber has the Wayfinder or whatever, or like the dagger? He has something.
Well, I remember at one point Ray splits from them and says, "We need the dagger." And he's like, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Don't worry. I just feel we need it." And it's like,
That was when they were on it, though, right? They were already on the Star Destroyer, I think.
yeah, but that just line like burned my brain a little bit when I heard it.
Anyway, they leave Kijimi, go up to a Star Destroyer. This is where they attempt to rescue Chewbacca, who they apparently at some point find out is alive. And as part of that, this is where I think this is the sequence where Kylo Ren has the fight with Rey in his little room.
Yeah,
when he's not even there.
He's on Kijimi. She's in his room.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where it's unveiled that she is Palpatine's granddaughter, and Ochi, the guy that originally owned that dagger, killed her parents.
It's not revealed here.
Oh, it's not.
No. He just says, "I know what." Like he tells her he knows, and that he can tell her the information to like meet up with him or whatever. But
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they have like a weird lightsaber fight here.
Way out of order.
real quick too. Ochi of Bastoon is in like the most current Darth Vader volume. He's a fucking cool character. He's a really cool character in the comic. That's why I kind of don't like that he just like kills Rey's parents. I'm like, oh, but like you're so likable in the comics.
Yeah.
You're such a cool dude.
I need to get caught up. I haven't really.
Well, continuing along here,
you've been pretty quiet. What do you feel about these scenes here?
I just remember at the time I was wondering where are they going with this? You know, what's happening? What are they setting up next? Right? Because like I think it was Austin or maybe it was Seth. Everything's moving so fast, right? We just learned Chewie's okay. And now, like you said, there's this weird fight going on between the two of them. And that whole scene was just like, I'm like, what are we setting this up for? What's the purpose? I think that's what I was feeling when I was watching it.
Yeah. Earlier on, way at the top of the movie, we got that whole sequence with the little ice asteroid where I mentioned they were getting some information from a spy about the return of Palpatine and his location on Exegol. Which, by the way, in hindsight, doesn't even make sense because the opening crawl of the movie says there's a mysterious transmission about the return of Palpatine, yet they needed a spy to tell them that there's... I don't know. Maybe I'm...
Do you know who played the spy?
Domhnall Gleeson.
Mark Hamill.
What?
Yeah, he played the spy.
What spy?
Like the one that got killed.
Oh, the little like I don't know if it was CGI or whatever the
like the little monster thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that actually. Yeah. Okay. But
Win the war.
What they determine though at this point in time when they're on the Star Destroyer is that Hux is actually the spy, General Hux, who's been in the past couple movies.
Yes.
And Hux helps out Poe and Finn and Chewbacca from execution. You know, they're all lined up and about to get shot by some stormtroopers, but Hux is like, you know what, let me do it. And then he shoots the stormtroopers. He helps them escape. He essentially tells them, you know, I don't even want to help you guys, but I really just hate Kylo Ren.
So I made a list of good, bad, and medium shit.
Yeah.
As I was watching the movie, like literally anytime anything happened, I just like threw it into a category. And there's only two things in like the medium where I'm just like, I don't know how to feel about this. And the line, like, I don't care if you win, I just need Kylo Ren to lose. I put that in like the medium because I couldn't tell how I felt about that. And I'm still not sure hours later.
I know.
Well, like in the last movie, I mean, this is one of the things that like does carry over from the last movie, right? In the last movie, Kylo Ren like forcibly makes him bend the knee to himself. So like, I can kind of see that, but at the same time, it's like, are we really gonna trust this guy as a spy to double cross? Like he's making it very clear he doesn't work for us, or he's not trying to help us. He's just trying to sabotage Kylo Ren. So I'm not a big fan of the plot point. It's not like the much better reveal of a spy in Star Wars Rebels. That was a big reveal.
Yeah. Don't spoil it.
Okay.
Ah,
But
shit, I'm sorry.
I'm like, I remember when I saw that, I'm like, come on, man. Like it wasn't even shocking. It wasn't even like, no way, you know, that feeling that we got when Chewie died, like damn, you know, like you had a reaction,
Yeah,
an emotional reaction, right?
But similarly, like same thing with Chewbacca, where it's like minutes after the reveal, he fucking it's just like it's undone.
he
So
gets
it's like
blastered in like
point?
45 seconds.
Yeah,
They all get off the ship, and then this other general guy, I don't even know the guy's name.
He's the dude from Doctor Who, and he plays old Loki on a hit television show, Loki.
He's a great actor, but he just blows away Hux just immediately. So, which is, I guess, fine. I don't know. It feels a
I think
little.
it was just a check the box type of moment. Okay, we got to have this. So how can we do it? Oh, okay. Well, let's use this character, and how can we fit it in? Well, let's try this. Okay, it looks okay, so let's do it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not super fond of that whole plot point because you're right. You guys are right. For me, it just wasn't really that surprising. It was kind of just like, oh, this guy that's been in the past two movies that nobody really cares about is the spy. All right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm an idiot. I didn't see it coming at all. But also, I didn't care because I didn't care about General Hux at all. So,
Yeah, no,
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. So, well, they get off the Star Destroyer and they make their way to, like I said, a moon in the Endor system. And I'm not sure if that moon is ever named. I could be wrong, but I don't know if they ever.
Forest moon.
Yeah, the Forest moon.
That's not...
So Rey shows up, or they all show up rather. One interesting thing here that comes out of nowhere is Finn comes across this group of people who are also all First Order kind of runaways, who are all
so weird,
which is just totally out of the
so
blue
weird
for no reason at all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what? You guys ran away from the First Order, and this is what you're doing?
Riding horses on a moon.
Yeah. What?
Fuck! Why is that weird? They were, weren't they like made? They told their story where she was like, like we were sent in to like pacify a civilian population, and the entire garrison just threw their guns down. We didn't want anything. So they got as far away from the war as they could. Right? They went to like the most remote place so they wouldn't be conscripted again because they were kidnapped as kids. Like that part, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess.
Couldn't they have like not gone to the moon that had the wreckage of the Death Star on it, though? Wouldn't that have
Who the fuck would look for them there? Also, Coach is right. One of the coolest set pieces in the sequel trilogy, hands down. It was fucking sick.
Oh, this was the other planet that I really loved. I wasn't super crazy about them throwing Finn a third love interest while he's like chasing after Rey in this movie, but they didn't really stick with it, you know, as this movie doesn't really commit to anything. So it's not that, I guess it's not that intrusive, but it was weird, right?
I never considered Rey a love interest, to be honest.
Oh, I thought that was implied extremely heavily in this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I still didn't get that vibe. I mean, so much of Star Wars is just like a child's idea of relationships, right? Like the amount of times where Anakin's like, ugh, politics, you know, it's just like that's all they say about like why the government is bad is just like the dude sighing and exhaling. I'm like, all right, like this is like someone overheard their parents talking and thinks they have a point, and that's just like how some of the characters feel. And like I don't know, like I didn't think he wanted to fuck Rey. I think like it's awkward between him and Rose, and I think that's why he's on the field team and she's like I don't think that ended well. That's why
Because
she's
it's never revealed. What did you think he was trying to tell Rey in the Last Planet?
I think he's just like kind of weird because like how much of his like explanations just come down like I got to do this for my friends. Like I think he's just like oddly possessive, being like post Stormtrooper. But like I didn't think it was like a romantic. I thought it was like completely platonic friendship or platonic love, however you want to call it.
I was thinking love interest.
Well, I mean, she's definitely a love interest for him in Episode 7, right? I mean, he comes out clearly and states it. He's like, oh, cute girl, and he's like all concerned about her, and even Han Solo's like, girls always find the truth, and well, I thought that was like pretty heavily implied. But yeah, I mean, either way, the love interest with Finn thing is pretty annoying. Either if she's the second or third love interest for Finn, it just seems like, and I said this last week too, they don't know what they're doing with Finn in this series. Like they crap all over his character after Episode 7.
No, threw him to the wolves.
Yeah, just
Which is
just really
so
disappointing.
I mean, he frankly should have been like the co-head leading character, essentially. I mean, with the excellent story they set him up with in 7, it's so disappointing for him to just get thrown to the wayside.
And you know what? To be honest with you, I know I'm a big Daisy Ridley defender because I feel like she got screwed over. I think John Boyega is the best actor in this out of the main cast. I think John Boyega is the best actor.
I would honestly agree.
Yeah, because even though his character sucks, like his acting is pretty consistent and spot on in all these movies, I think.
Yeah. But so
who's the most likable though? Sorry, before we move on. Is it Finn?
In the first movie, yes.
I think Finn might be the most likable in this one as well. Not in Episode 8, but in this one, I think he's pretty likable. It's either him or Poe. Rey's pretty annoying in this movie. I think she's like, her annoying level got like turned up because her motivations don't really make much sense. But
I think her motivations don't make sense until this part, until this scene. Then I think it kind of makes like until she finds out that she's a Palpatine. Then I think her motivations make plenty of sense.
Is this where she finds out? Sorry, Austin, continue.
No, it's fine. Sorry. This is where we were talking about it earlier, but this is where that whole thing with the dagger comes into play, with her holding it up to the wreckage and it pointing
lucky
to where the Wayfinder is. And I mean, I don't know. I guess I could kind of see what you said, George, earlier in the show, with maybe it's just because it was modified in some way to match the wreckage, but I don't know.
It gives me very strong Uncharted 4 vibes, right? And I hated that about Uncharted 4. Hey, here's the treasure's here. Oh wait, no, never mind. It's not here. But here's like the next clue to the treasure, where it might be, but it's not actually going to be there. It's going to be like some weird random like thing that almost links up. And it's like, God, shut up. Why is it got to be this difficult?
So or rather, she eventually, long story short, she eventually does go find this Wayfinder in the wreckage. There, though, she is met by Kylo, who comes and destroys the Wayfinder immediately. And then has this, I would say, pretty well done lightsaber sequence with her. I think this is actually a pretty cool sequence.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. That is the one thing that I think the sequels get consistently right, is lightsaber fights. They're not overly flashy like the prequels. They're not really slow because they thought they were wielding claymores in the sequel or the original trilogy, but they have like a nice balance. Like there's a brutality to the lightsaber combat that I really like in the sequel trilogy, and this one in particular is my favorite.
Yeah. Coach, what did you think about this lightsaber sequence?
I agree with Seth. I liked all of them. The only issue I had was the whole healing part of it, right?
Yeah. So
when we get to that,
yeah, let's hit that now then. So as part of this, Leia, I guess, sensing what's happening through the Force, is essentially calling to Kylo through the Force and trying to distract him so that, I guess, Rey can win this fight, essentially. As part of that, Leia has essentially used up all her life energy and dies in this moment. That allows Rey to stab Kylo basically straight through the chest. And you know, Rey kind of senses Leia's death, and with that, she heals Kylo, takes his TIE fighter, and then goes to Ahch-To, where Luke was in the last movie. So, yeah, that
What
sequence,
a sequence.
just, I don't know, man.
So I didn't get that Leia was trying to save Rey. I got that Leia was trying to save Ben.
It could have been
right?
that.
Like,
yeah,
that she was trying to reach out with the last bit of like effort that she had to reach out to him, and the overexertion from the Force killed her, I guess. But it doesn't seem like it's that much of a task.
No.
I mean,
especially considering Luke Skywalker put a projection of himself.
right?
Yeah,
That's
minutes.
that's like a
last-
huge.
Yeah, but he died too. So
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, did we get any indication that Leia was like the end of her life or something like that? I mean,
maybe the Force is like
No.
a golf handicap. You know, like it's like everyone's got one. You know, you can only do so much.
on a positive note, though, I do love the way this lightsaber fight goes, where finally, like, Kylo Ren seems powerful, and he just completely overwhelms Rey at the end of it, and he's like about to kill her, but when Leia reaches out, and I think that is like a really interesting thing, because it's the first time we really see Rey take an L, I think, in this trilogy. Because in the first movie, she somehow, like, well, not somehow, like, it's set up in the plot that Kylo's injured and she beats him, but in the second one, she's just like killing the royal elite guards left and right. And then this one, she finally she runs into some issues where she's like, okay, fully power Kylo Ren, a little too much for me right now.
Yeah.
And I did like that, because it showed a little bit more tact, I think. But the actual combat was cool. Them jumping over the waterfalls and stuff, really cool. But yeah, then the Force Seal thing ruins it.
This had, like, after the Force Seal, it was like one of my favorite lines in the movie, where you know, they were talking like before, like the stab or whatever, about like, you want to take my hand before, and she was quiet, then she like heals him. I have no qualms about the healing like you guys do. To the point where I'm like confused why it bothers you so much. I've heard you explain it, and I'm sorry, but like I still like about seeing like a new power like that part doesn't bother me. But then her line about like, I did want to take your hand, Ben's hand, not Kylo's hand, you know, like that implication. I thought that shit was really good.
Yeah. I think it's a good scene overall. It's just, and I don't want to hit the nail with the healing again. I think I don't know. It just doesn't feel totally right to me. But I will say this, going back to Leia for a moment, again, as a reminder, I mean, Carrie Fisher was not alive when they filmed this movie. Sad to say, they probably had to write her out or wrap up her storyline somehow with this movie. And so this is frankly probably the best they could do without kind of just shoving her aside. And I'm okay with that.
I think that's why you don't see like her face at the end, right? Like you see her like go down on the bed,
right?
And then you can just see whatever else happens.
I just think it was a wrong time to bring in that Force ability, because I mean, why didn't Luke use it on his father? Why didn't Obi-Wan use it on Qui-Gon? Why didn't the Jedis use it on the clones that passed? Right. So I don't mind. I think it's a cool Force ability, but to use it and not know how you got it, that's what I have an issue with.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very important, like I said, like, I really care about the world building of Star Wars. And it's extremely important. Like this changes like the whole dynamic of almost all conflicts in the Star Wars universe. And it's just like, oh yeah, I just have this now. And it's like very nonchalant the way it's used. 3 times this movie, 4 actually. And it's just like, what's going on here?
And
like,
but
did we get a little bit of explanation from it?
Or Force Echoes like a big thing before The Last Jedi came out, or not The Last Jedi, whatever that game was, the Fall of the Jedi. What was the first one?
Fallen Order.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. Like, was Force Echoes, was that a thing, or was that just like a video game convention to do like audio diaries? You know, so it's And like I think the power makes sense, and it's like, oh, like I think even the chick in the game is like, oh, that's a really rare ability. Not a lot of people have it, so it's like I'm cool. Like I think that makes the universe bigger. Like it's convenient force power to unlock in this movie in particular, but like I have no problems with that. I like that it's like opening up the mythos.
The execution was just bad. My feelings, my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, cool ability, but bad execution.
All right, so like I said at the end here, Rey goes off back to Octu, the planet where Luke was in the last movie, where he exiled himself because, at some point, I don't even know when this comes up. She has a vision, or maybe she just talks about it. She has a vision that she's like sitting on the throne with Kylo or something, and she basically wants to exile herself and do the same thing Luke did.
Yeah. It's never shown, but she says that she had this vision, which probably a cutscene.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably it's probably cut out for time.
So she goes back there, and kind of simultaneously as she's going back, I'll say quickly that Kylo has kind of a strange scene, I guess, with Han Solo, obviously his father, where they're conversing back and forth just out of the blue.
I definitely wanted to talk about this because is this a legitimate thing that's happening, or is this just like a metaphor scene? Because if it's legit, this would be the first instance of a Star Wars like non-Force ghost we've ever seen. And also, what?
I think
it was a Force ghost.
Yeah,
just a regular ghost.
No, not a ghost. Like I think it's just him. Like I think it's
like
an existential crisis he's having.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Plus, just from a visual standpoint, they don't do anything like visually with Harrison Ford. Like he just looks like he's there.
Dude's just there.
Yeah. So that to me read as he's just imagining his father.
Yeah, he had the line. Thinking. He had the line. He's like, "You're just a memory." He's like, "Your memory."
That's true.
Right. I just want to make sure that we were on the same page because that's what I was thinking as well. But it's not really clearly
in the world of Star Wars. You got to double check. It's like, wait, is this a real ghost?
Yeah,
or a metaphorical ghost. Yeah.
And I also liked the repeat scene of like they almost had like an identical scene to the episode 7 scene where he's like, I know what I have to do, but I don't have the strength to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool because it would kind of give you like a what if, what if he had chosen a different path all the way back then?
Right.
Would I thought that was pretty neat. But this next scene, man, holy fudge nuggets. Sorry, continue.
Are we talking about Octu? Is that we're going there now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Rey's on Octu. She's exiling herself. What is she? She's like throwing pieces of wood into the TIE fighter to catch it on fire, I guess, so that she just can't leave.
Being angry. She's just being angry.
Yeah. And of course, Luke shows up, Force Ghost Luke, and he's kind of just like, I'll be honest.
She throws the lightsaber.
Yeah.
That's what she just throws.
That's right. I forgot about that.
That's when he shows up.
And he catches it and walks out of the flames with it in hand as a Force Ghost. And he's like, that's not a way to treat a lightsaber. So
I've never seen a more direct and like obvious, like there's no other way to take this scene other than like a legitimate J.J. Abrams being like, fuck Rian Johnson, right? Like there's no other way to take that scene. I mean,
so
it comes across honestly a little unprofessional, I would say. Like it seems like that insulting. I don't know.
What's funny though, Seth, is it's not just that lightsaber throw. Obviously, the whole plot of the last movie was like, okay, it's time for the Sith and the Jedi to both end, both of them.
Yeah.
Okay, Luke even says it. Yoda even says it to Luke. He's like, all right, it's time for it to end. That's why I've ignited this, the tree that the texts were in. As you find out later, they weren't actually in it. But that's literally like they come to that conclusion. Both Luke and Yoda agree, like, all right, maybe it is time for it to end, and that's fine. Yet he comes out of the flames here, and he's like, oh no, you're the last Jedi. We gotta keep it going. We gotta keep it going.
Scrap on, dude. But and like I understand like JJ was trying to course correct back to like his original vision probably, right? But like this scene in particular is like if it came out tomorrow that like Ryan Johnson slapped J.J. Abrams' mom, I'd be like, yeah, makes sense actually, because there's like such a level of vitriol with making this scene that I can't imagine. It had been very personal.
Coach, what did you think about this sequence?
It just didn't. It was like it just didn't fit with the flow of the movie. Like all of a sudden now she's over here, you know, and I mean it's cool to see Luke, but I just thought a lot of times what's going on here. And then especially with this, like, okay, so what are we going to do from here? You know, where is it going to go from here?
Yeah.
What I will say is in this scene, Mark Hamill, it seemed like Mark Hamill was more comfortable than he was in episode 8, because he it seemed like he was able to get back into the character of Luke Skywalker, where like it sounded like Luke Skywalker and it looked like Luke Skywalker again, where he's like, what are you doing? You know? And I didn't get that vibe from episode 8, where it seemed almost like Mark Hamill was uncomfortable with the way he was acting in Luke Skywalker in that movie. Whereas this one, it seems like he's more into the character, and I think that shows in this scene in particular.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's just seems more like Luke here to me. But as a whole, this whole sequence still doesn't literally make a single ounce of sense to me.
Well, yeah, because it comes out that both Luke and Leia both knew that Rey was a Palpatine.
Correct.
And what? You know? Why? How? Why? Why would you never tell her? What is going on?
Wasn't the implication that like they're also the children of monsters and they didn't want? Right? Wasn't that like, yeah, we're the kid of Anakin Skywalker, you know, the guy who killed all those Jedi children and then subjugated a galaxy and enslaved a lot of Wookiees,
I guess
destroyed a lot of cities. Like, we're also like the children of monsters too.
But like this, she has like a debilitating mental illness from not knowing her parents, right? And like,
yeah,
like she stayed on this desert planet eating instant bread for 20 years or whatever, and
inside of AT-AT.
Yeah, like marking like it's a very sad story, and instead of being like, hey, listen, we know your story, like, here's let us help you, they're like, no, we're just gonna hide it from her. We're gonna hide it from her and let her live with this. I don't know, man.
Valid.
And then, like, what are you going to do? Reveal it to her when she's a full-powered Jedi, and then she might follow the darkness and create a second? You know, I don't like that. It doesn't make any sense. Unless they found out in death that she's a Palpatine, and they like watch the whole thing. That would make more sense. Whatever. I'm done rambling.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest.
I don't believe you.
I'm going to be honest. I think I was multitasking at this part of the movie. As part of this, Luke like points Rey to Leia's lightsaber, which is on Octu. Is it explained why
it's hidden?
Yeah.
No, it's not. I thought the same thing.
Why doesn't Leia have her lightsaber?
Well,
I can't remember.
I understood.
There might be a
I understood that
there.
Because it shows that flashback, and he goes over like, oh, you know, she said she was pregnant and she was doing one of her final trainings with him or whatever.
That's right.
But why was it hidden? That is, you know, that's the thing. Like, Luke didn't hide his lightsaber, and he didn't. Why did he hide Leia's? Because it's later revealed, or maybe it's revealed at the end. Before this, it's revealed that the caretakers of that island took Luke's lightsaber, the green one. I just looked this up. So, why did he hide Leia's in this weird brick wall?
Didn't she say that like she left it there because someone's going to need it someday?
Yeah,
that's true.
I don't think, as far as I know, she didn't even know where Octu was. She didn't leave it there. Luke took it there.
No, George has a good point though. That is a plot point where she's like, yeah, I know that somebody will need this. So I don't know. Maybe that's their explanation as to why it's there.
No, I understand why it's on Octu. Why is it hidden? Why is it hidden in the wall? I mean, it's sure we're splitting hairs, I guess, but just a thing that didn't make sense to me. Also, give me Luke's green lightsaber. I want to see it. Yeah, I'm sick of beating around the bush. Pregnant pause.
Is this? I can't remember if this is now or if this is when Rey goes to Exegol. Is this a sequence where we get like the vision of Rey like turning evil, or is that later?
That happened way earlier in the movie, didn't it?
I can't remember when that happened.
That happened when she was on the wreckage of the Death Star.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
She
Yeah,
fought her
That's right.
evil stuff.
Can I just say?
Well, let me tell you what.
What a babe.
I don't think I gotta say what I needed, right? Like, come on, we're all feeling it.
Well, if it's related to how awesome that lightsaber is and related to like how it snaps back and forth, is that what you were gonna say, Seth? Because I love that lightsaber design.
Something igniting, you know what I'm saying? Something.
A lightsaber that is red and snaps back and forth like Darth Maul, but not, right?
A little too much. Now, for me, it's a little too much. I don't like it.
I like it.
I mean,
I like it.
It reeked a little bit of Inquisitorious, if you know what I'm saying. Like, just stick with one design, right? Stop trying to be fancy. Miss do it all.
All right, so Rey gets out of Exegol. She takes Luke's X-wing that has been sitting underwater for approximately 20 years. How did that happen? I don't know.
Yeah, like, it's designed for the vacuum of space. You think you can't keep some fucking water out, Austin?
That's true. Good point.
You think you're better than Sinai Systems or whoever invented that shit?
You're more talking about why was it underwater, right?
No,
Is that
well,
a question?
wasn't it under there because he just didn't want to, like, it was just there? No, I
So
was
he
thinking
just-
more so how is it still operational when it's been sitting
Yeah,
underwater
dude
for
never
an
wants to
extended
pay for
period of time?
parking ever.
Well, I mean, it was under the swamps of Dagobah for like
True.
quite a long time too. So
True. Man, those things are made
I think
of
it's the same
very,
X-wing.
very good material.
I
Yeah.
do. He seems weird about it. Like, if I've had my Jetta for 15 years, I'm pretty sure he can hold on to his X-wing for 40.
That's true.
is that what you drive, Georgia Jetta?
Yeah, OA Jetta.
Oh.
All right, so anyway, she takes off on this X-wing and she uses the Wayfinder that she got from Kylo's TIE fighter to go and head toward Exegol, and as part of that, she starts transmitting coordinates to the Resistance, who use her coordinates to also follow her to Exegol. And when she gets there, she finds Palpatine, who looks like GLaDOS from Portal because he is attached to a giant, like, mechanical arm. And basically, he wants her to kill him so that his spirit can kind of pass into her and she can rule the galaxy.
Certainly is a choice. Yeah.
Certainly. Not really explained well, I feel. Is this like a force ability Palpatine has? Or did he like is this the same ability that Plagueis had? Where he cheated death?
Could be.
I don't know. I don't need it explained that much to me, to be honest. Like, if it's one of those things where Palpatine says he can do it, I'm just gonna go ahead and believe it.
Well, I'm just wondering because like why haven't all the because they're making a big deal about this, like you're all the Sith, you're all the Jedi, right? Is this like a literal interpretation where like Plagueis and Palpatine merged when Palpatine killed him all the way back to the Bane days, or like I don't understand what they're saying, right?
Because it's
I don't
brought
know,
up
but I
again
will-
from a Jedi standpoint too, of her being like
All the
later
Jedi,
on,
yeah.
she's like,
So like
yeah, I'm all the Jedi, and like, I don't know.
I put that in the bad category because I'm like, but what the fuck does that mean?
It's a pretty cringy line. I didn't like that. I hate that scene at the end.
It's really cool seeing Palpatine on the giant mechanical arm, though, like a weird fucking scorpion tail. I love that look, and he's just
Yeah.
The
weird
design of
limp
Exegol and everything surrounding Exegol, I think, is actually really well done. How dark it is out there, like all the Star Destroyers lined up, the interior planet stuff, you know, all the statues. I guess, are they statues of Palpatine? I don't know what all those are, to be honest.
I think they are, because so while we were talking earlier in the movie, when I had questioned about what the Sith Eternal were,
Yeah.
these were people who worshipped Palpatine in like a Sith cult back when he was still alive.
Okay.
and then they left Exegol and came back after his death to continue working on like his cloning thing. And that's how they were. So this is the explanation. They're able to create this massive force of starships and whatnot because they're doing gene splicing and gene editing. So they're giving people these like crazy abilities to like be like the best mechanics or like the best, you know, like anything. And that's how they're doing this. So that's kind of like their whole thing. That's why that they're making clones. They're editing the clones' genes and stuff to try and figure out like the perfect clone of Palpatine. Wait, I don't remember where we were. I don't remember how to get back to my point, but that's what I was trying to say.
So I feel like, I don't know, my memory is just bad with all the expanded content surrounding this movie. Did they ever confirm, like, is this the same Palpatine, or is the Palpatine that's in this movie a clone of the
This is a
original?
clone.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this.
I think
is
it has
clone.
to. Dude fell into the reactor of
Right.
the Death Star.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, Palpatine.
Unless that was a clone, and this is the original.
No, this is a clone. So that's why I was wondering earlier, like, what is going on with this? They're all the Sith thing, because Palpatine's whole thing for cheating death was transferring his essence into another body. So he had the clones ready in episode 6 when he got thrown into the reactor, and he transferred then, but he transferred into like the clones were really bad, right? So they kept making better and better clones until he's at the point where he's at now, and they're not getting there. So that's why he wants to transfer into Rey's body, or originally Kylo Ren's body, right? So, but that's also, I don't understand you're gonna strike me down, and I'm gonna transfer into your body.
Yeah,
and we are
that's
all
true.
the Sith.
That doesn't even make sense.
None of the whole like overarching like thing makes sense. So I wish that I had gotten more of an explanation or anything in this movie, because it drives me nuts.
The ending sequence as a whole just has a lot of issues, I would say, but
Which is weird because, like, on the surface level, like, a lot of exciting shit is happening, right?
Oh my god, so much exciting shit.
such as
But then it is the second you think about it, you're like, wait, hold on.
such as what happens next with the Resistance launching, they show up, launch an attack on the Sith fleet, but shortly after, where it seems as though things are not going their way, Lando shows up and he's like, hey, Poe, what's going on, man? And then Poe looks up and he's like, oh, there's literally every single ship in the entire galaxy here to help. So,
including some cameo ships, by the way. Some cameo
very
ships
cool
that are pretty
cameo
cool.
ships. Yeah.
If the catching the lightsaber was like a fuck you to Rian Johnson, I think this scene is like the second finger in the
Yes.
fuck
Oh,
you,
yeah.
right?
I
Because
agree.
like in Last Jedi, when they were trying to send the signal out and no one showed up, and then now it's like, oh, everyone showed up this time.
I agree.
Because Lando got him.
And this is a plot point for me too that still doesn't make sense, but I think it's exactly for that reason. I think it's just a middle finger, because literally early in the movie they're like, yeah, they just didn't have hope. They mentioned that at the end of the last one too, where it's like, well, why would they suddenly have hope now? Like, what even changed for
Lando
just the general
fucked
public?
the hope into them.
Yeah, sure did.
Fucking went to planet, just laying down the pipe.
Yeah, Billy the D. Williams himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like in a matter of a couple hours, right? Because the whole thing was like
He's
13
fast, Coach.
hours.
He's fast.
I think. Yeah. I'm just like, come on, man. Like,
Maybe it was just everyone was like, look at the Millennium Falcon. That is an awesome ship. We're going to follow this guy. And everybody followed him.
I hate the Eternal Fleet in the battle at the end type thing. It doesn't even. God, I hate it so much. It's just, and then they're running on top the starship or the
No,
Star Destroyer.
that part was sick. Just like a
What
horse
do you
charge,
mean?
a horse charge on top
Why
of
did
like
they-
a
bro,
Star Destroyer
did
in
they
a
bring-
lightning storm. What the fuck's not cool about that?
Why did they bring
Might
these horses?
look cool.
Why did they bring these
I don't-
horses? What was the point of bringing these horses?
Because I don't think they had the speeders to fight, dude. Like, have you seen like the resistance operation? Like, they're using 800-year-old spaceships going against like the new hotness from the Sith fleet out in Exegol. They ain't got jack shit, man. They're kept together with prayers and duct tape. Like, yeah, of course they're gonna use these weird fucking alpaca horses they found it's in some like demilitarized war zone in the wreckage of a WMD. Yeah, man, that's what they fucking got.
Well, they sure
Oh,
as
there's a
hell.
hole in the Millennium Falcon. I hope someone's chewing some gum today. Like that's where we are, you know?
They sure as hell had 100 brand new bombers at the beginning of the last movie, so I'd love to know how
Yeah,
all
actually,
that went down.
man,
real fast.
I wrote that in my note. Actually, I was like, "Bet you wish you had some fucking bombers now, don't you, Poe?"
Yeah. I don't know. I hate this ending scene so much. It's so dumb.
The Marvelification of the humor in this. How do you feel about like Leia's dying wish was to make Poe general, and then he just like starts referring to Finn as general? It's like, I need you to do this with me, general. He's like, general, and like they do like the doctor thing. Thumbs up or thumbs down.
I was mildly amused by it. I thought
that part made me chuckle. Yeah, I think the humor is absolutely better in this movie than the last one.
Totally agree. It doesn't feel as out of place as it did in the last one. Yeah, okay, so there's like a series of things that happen here. I'm just gonna kind of sum it down, but basically, Kylo Ren shows up, decides to go help Rey. He comes across the Knights of Ren, which I'll talk about them in a second, but he once again has his little forced conversation thing with Rey, and Rey somehow passes him Leia's lightsaber through this forced conversation thing. He takes out the Knights of Ren, and then heads on over to help out Rey with Palpatine. Can I just say, the Knights of Ren
could have been
fucking
just awesome.
Freaking awesome. I agree. Biggest, in my opinion, mistake of this entire franchise or sequel trilogy. They set them up as such cool, like mysterious villains in Episode 7 when, I forget who it is, but they show that either vision or flashback sequence with Kylo and all of them surrounding him, and then they just don't matter at all.
Hey, you know what? They matter a lot in the Crimson Dawn crossover that recently took place over at Marvel Comics. So put your money where your mouth is, Austin.
I was actually just gonna bring up the comics and how they tried to like expand upon the Knights of Ren in the comics, and they are awful. Those comics are terrible, man. Did you realize that the guy was originally, they were literally just like, the guy's name was Ren, and he wore like a weird goofy mask. It was stupid.
What?
Oh no,
that was the Kylo comic, right?
I thought that it was the Knights of Ren comic. It might be the Kylo comic. I can't remember.
I wasn't talking about those. I was talking about, because they actually appear like back in the Civil War era. Like Vader fights the Knights of Ren back in the day.
I'm sure that went well for them.
Stuff happened, but it was like a 3-way fight between like Palpatine, Vader, the Knights of Ren, and Kira from the Crimson Dawn. That comic series was fun. It's good shit.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so Kylo Ren, who I guess is now known as Ben at this point, because he's no longer Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ben.
Ben shows up to Palpatine and Rey and is going to help out Rey until
he gets immediately yeet.
Yeah, he just gets thrown off a cliff behind him. Gets absolutely tossed the second he walks in.
Out of here.
Which is mildly amusing. I like that. So, but I forget it. Honestly, this whole sequence at the end is just a lot to remember mentally. I feel like there's just so much that goes on in a short amount of time. I don't remember if it's before or after that where Palpatine like takes all their life energy or whatever he's attempting to do.
That's right before. I'm watching it right now. I'm like last week. I'm skipping through as we're talking about it.
That's why he's strong enough to yeet Adam Driver off the cliff.
Right. Oh, that's right. Because he becomes like a fully powered Palpatine.
Yeah, his little fingers grow back. Yeah.
That's right. His fingers grow back, and then he shoots like a 4-mile-high lightning into the sky, striking every single.
This part really fucking pissed me off. Yeah. Didn't care for this part.
Dude, what a cheap, freaking stupid. I don't know. I hated that so much. Like, oh, he's strong again, so now he can just shoot lightning, just tons of it into the sky, like nobody has ever seen before.
This movie is all swings and shortcuts, you know? That's all it is.
So Rey wakes up, takes out Luke's lightsaber. She's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna put an end to this." This is right after she hears some voices of past Jedi, and I had the subtitles on as I was watching this. I didn't realize some of the Jedi that speak to her at this point.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of really weird cameos.
Ayla Secura speaks to her for some reason.
Yeah, Kiani Mundi.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Your thoughts dwell on your mother.
So she pulls out Luke's lightsaber, starts kind of getting up close to Palpatine. You know, he's using his Force lightning against her. It's hitting her lightsaber there. And what really does it though is when in a killer blow, Rey decides to use a second lightsaber. And that's just what does it. That's what allows her to get up close. And you know, it wraps up there pretty much because Palpatine shocks himself.
Well, see, that was Mace Windu's problem. Was that he only had the one lightsaber? He only had the one lightsaber. Yeah.
I just
This
I
ending
had
is so
to
stupid.
I had to
dude.
laugh as I was watching this earlier because I'm like, really? That's all? It was just she needed a second lightsaber and that was it.
I don't even know. I don't even know
This
what
whole
to
ending
say
is a
about it.
disaster, in my opinion. It's all over the place.
You would think. No, go ahead, Coach.
My biggest issue was, if we go back a few minutes, was for one, now this whole fleet of Star Destroyers has the weapon that was on the Death Star. All of them do. However, the 1,999 couldn't lift off because of the one. Like, who's gonna like engineer that? That was the worst way to try and keep them on planet.
And by the way, when they take down that one, every single one is just going to explode.
Yeah,
I thought it was just showmanship. I thought they were like, we're gonna make this look awesome when we come out of the ocean. That's what I thought. That's what I thought they were doing, honestly.
Oh my!
They came out of the ocean. I thought they came out from underground.
Under the ice, right?
I don't even know.
Something I don't know.
I guess ice makes sense. Yeah.
So Rey dies at this point. Rey actually dies when she's fighting Palpatine. Well, Kylo Ren comes out of his little pit that he got tossed into about 2 minutes earlier and comes up and he reveals he also has this Force healing ability and heals Rey to the point that he now dies, but she is alive. And in that time frame, they share a kiss, which I feel like was unneeded. And that's kind of how it ends, at least from this sequence. There is one more final sequence, but of course that means Ben dies here.
It's weird because there's like no sexuality this entire new trilogy, right? Like I don't even think there's like tension. Like do Han and Leia even kiss when they're reunited? No, because they're like an estranged married couple, right? Like they broke
hug
up
and that's it.
Yeah, okay.
Which
and
is
so like there's just
me out.
Yeah, there's just like no romance, and like I think it's kind of fucking prudish. I don't know when everyone got so scared of kissing in movies, because it's the same thing with the Marvel movies, how there's like no sexual energy anywhere, which is weird because these are in theory like the hottest people on the planet, right? In the Marvel movies, but no one ever wants to kiss another human being ever. And it's like that part felt really weird to me. I'm guessing it's because they're a dyad in the Force, and because like what's hers is his, and what's his is hers, and like that's how he's able to heal her. I'm not going to look too deep for an explanation there. I'm just like, because it is just like kid logic again, where it's like, oh yeah, he traded himself for her. How? It's like, it doesn't really matter.
I think they should have just kept it where she gave himself, or that she died and he was the one that survived.
How much more mad would you be if at the end he introduced himself as Ben Skywalker instead of Ben Solo?
I mean, like that.
Yeah,
Ben Palpatine.
Yeah, no. I would have got the same reaction as I would with Rey saying she's a Skywalker.
Ben the Hutt.
I don't disagree with you though, Coach. I think actually it would have been a more powerful ending had Rey died here. I think that would have been, I know in Star Wars, it's kind of set up as like the hero always wins, but I think it would have been a unique take for Ben to have been the one that lived and lived on rather than Rey.
Yeah, even though he was an asshole the entire
Especially
time.
considering she's
Yeah,
just
I don't know if
an
I agree with you
ultra-powerful
guys.
Jedi.
I don't know if I agree with you guys. I just why this? I mean, Ben's story's wrapped up. He redeemed himself. It's over.
That's true.
I'm sure we might like him more than Rey, but like, I mean, it's done. There's what's he gonna do? Rebuild the Jedi Order and like hide from all the younglings? Like, oh, you know, I had this little episode when I was like 23. You know, like,
I experimented
yeah,
with
I
the
don't.
dark side for a little
Don't
while.
read my
Yeah,
diary
actually,
from those days.
He can't go within 500 yards of a Jedi temple ever again.
Yeah.
I know,
based,
right?
based on what happened the last time. So
No, that's a good point.
I don't
That's a
know.
good point. His plot is pretty much wrapped up at that point. So
Yeah, I mean, Rey seems to me like the more logical person to carry on the legacy of the Jedi, whether her plot made sense or not in these 3 movies. Now the naming thing, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense, but you know, whatever. Which I'm sure you'll bring up next.
speaking of naming, the very final sequence of this movie is Rey going back to Tatooine. She goes to Luke's old home there and buries both Luke and Leia's lightsabers. And some random person walks by and's like, "Hey, nobody's been here in a long time. What's your name?" And Rey goes, "Rey Skywalker." And then
no, she goes Rey.
Rey.
Then she waits 22 seconds and then says Rey Skywalker.
and then the movie ends. And that's
Don't you see
end
the
of the
ghost of Luke and Leia at the end
Yeah.
here?
You do. You do. How do we feel now, 4 years later, about Rey Skywalker?
I don't give a
I
shit.
was-
It's the name she chose. That's the family she chose. It's the life she chose. Like it's whatever.
I don't like it, but not because I feel like it's disrespectful, because I feel like it just is so dumb. And it's just like, okay, because like legitimately that's not true, right? Like she's not a Skywalker.
She's not.
So why are you carrying on this name just for the legacy? I mean, put up a statue or something, right? Like, also don't bury the lightsabers. It doesn't mean, why are you burying the lightsabers? Use them. Put them on display at the new Jedi Temple or whatever you're doing. Like, hey, this was Luke Skywalker. He was the hero of the Republic.
Especially
know.
considering what we know now about there being a new movie about her. And I
Proposed.
could be wrong, but
No, it's confirmed. They
No,
confirmed
it's
it
real.
at.
Yeah, they confirmed Rogue Squadron too, but
that's true.
that didn't go out to them.
But didn't they say in that plot summary or plot explanation for that movie that it's going to be about her like rebuilding the Jedi Order, or am I just
Yeah.
totally mistaken?
Yeah.
So
Like
that in
10
mind,
years in the future or something.
that in mind,
I can't wait.
mean,
I think that like I'm so psyched for that movie, dude, because I really do think Daisy Ridley got the short end of the stick, and she deserves a chance at redemption. And I think Rey's character can be a really good character when it needs to be.
right.
So like, I think without the controversy of these 2 warring directors, I think there could be a really cool movie and a really, really neat idea here, setting up the next generation of Jedi.
Yeah.
But
Well,
hopefully we get a little more character development and consistency from Rey.
the only reason I brought that up is because, I mean, you've got 2 lightsabers here that could be used for future Jedi, yet they're getting buried. I don't know.
Yeah, it's stupid.
So
Especially
that's-
when Leia had like no connection to hers.
they wouldn't have known obviously at that time that they were going to do a Rey movie, so that's probably a nitpicky thing to point out. But to me, it would have made more sense for Rey to just keep them. So
And I believe through the comics, there's like a 20-foot mound of kyber crystals just kind of sitting on Exegol somewhere.
that's interesting.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
I guess there would have to be for
Um,
him to be able to build the Death Star tech into those
Oh
So
yeah.
Star
She could
Destroyers.
train Jedi and they could go to Exegol and
Yeah,
build their lightsabers and fight
I don't
dark
know.
Jedi witches. And
I don't know, guys. I feel
I
like
do.
the more I
I do
talk
love
about
the
this,
design.
Oh, go ahead.
I love the design of her lightsaber at the end of the movie. I think it's
So do
really
I.
cool.
I love the
like the dial thing.
Yeah.
the dial ignition switch is awesome. I really like it. But I was just gonna say, I feel like the more like going through and talking about this movie and recounting every point of its plot, gosh, there are things to like about this movie, but I just feel like there are so many issues. So many issues. It's really hard to sit down and like just appreciate because of how many weird plot holes, and it just feels like an argumentative essay, essentially.
Yeah. It's a weird movie to talk about. What I will say is after rewatching and talking about it all this time, if it wasn't for the last half hour of this movie, I think I could have passed it.
Yeah.
I cannot stand the last half hour of this movie. Like I think it looks bad. I think it doesn't make sense. I think that the starship battles are stupid, and I just there's nothing I like about the last half hour of that movie except for seeing Ben Solo come back and fight the Knights of Ren. That's the only thing I like.
I think for me, at the end, I just have zero faith in Star Wars on the big screen. Because Kathleen Kennedy, if she's still around when these movies come out, she's just going to fuck them up. She's going to mess them up. I don't have faith in the writers anymore. If they use the writers from like some of the guys that Dave Filoni had on Clone Wars or Rebels, or even the new stuff with Bad Batch, I think it has a chance. But I can't get excited for anything Star Wars on the big screen as long as Kathleen Kennedy is still so involved.
I'll be honest. I don't know how she didn't lose her job after this, after the disaster of these three movies with like no direction and Daisy Ridley coming out and saying like they changed her character origin up until the final shot, and I'm like,
here's the thing.
That seems like a massive oversight.
Here's the thing you got to remember though, is that these movies, all three of them, still did amazing from a box office standpoint. They are still some of the highest grossing movies of all time, all three of them.
The Force
So-
Awakens
fair.
is the #1 grossing movie domestic.
Also, it's one of those things too where it's like, I don't know how much she did wrong. You know, like she hired J.J. Abrams, who like at the time is like one of the most popular and successful filmmakers, right? Like the dude's just like the second coming of Spielberg, and like this movie is based on like 70s sci-fi, right? Like in 2015 or whatever, and then hires Ryan Johnson, who like is a good director also, right? Like Looper was like this kick-ass sci-fi thing, and then everyone was complaining about like random shows, right? Like season 2 of Mandalorian, season Book of Boba Fett, but it's like, yeah, wasn't that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni? Like, aren't those like the two dudes who like had like a good track record too with all their shit? So it feels like the Mets, where it's like, oh yeah, they shelled out all this fucking money for like the top tier talent, and they just didn't make the playoffs. Like it just like it happens. Like,
So, George, I'll tell you what she did wrong with this. She didn't lock down a story that would have continuity. And that was the biggest issue, is there was no continuity. Nothing.
The general.
Go ahead.
Finish your thought, Coach. I thought you were done.
No, I'm just saying there was no flow. Say what you will about the prequels, but at least it had like a beginning and an end, right? But this one, the sequels was just all over, and her name was on it, and yes, made a lot of money, millions and millions of money, and it had the magic. Episode 7 had that Star Wars magic, that Christmas, that, what was it, 2015 or 16 or something like that?
Yeah.
It came out. And there was so much hype going into the second one. Who's Rey? Who's Snoke? And is Finn, is he sensitive in the Force, right? And it was everything, all that hype was just blown up because you didn't sit and you didn't get a good story.
Well, so I agree with you, Coach, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about the leaked script for episode 9 next week. I think it's gonna be a really good discussion. But Like, how does that happen, right? Like, how do you get Star Wars, spend that much money on Star Wars? And from all the reports that you read, they rushed the movies out the gate. Like they were like really pushing as fast as they could. And I know they were trying to copy the original trilogy in that they had 3 different directors for all 3 movies, right? But George Lucas was still there, and his wife, that who, depending on who you talk to, his wife might be the one that had the secret sauce, right?
Right.
But they were there like overseeing the whole thing, and they had an idea. It seems very disjointed. I think episode 9 is a mistake, and they should have, if they were okay with what Rian Johnson did in episode 8, stick to your guns and go for it, right? Because this is like a mess. This movie is a mess. And like we've all come away from this conversation, I think, like there's things we love about this movie, and like there's things that are really cool, but it's a complete disaster from start to finish. The pacing's wrong. I mean, like the character motivations are like not there. The plot holes, like there's so much that this movie, like it needed someone to be like, all right, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. Make this make sense. Rewrite this. I think they needed more time, and they didn't have it. And they were writing they were making movies for probably the most famous IP in history. So,
also, we talked about this a little bit with The Last Jedi, man. I think these are the 2 longest Star Wars movies, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to make a 2.5 hour long movie. You just don't. You got to give a beginning, middle, and end in 2 hours. Like,
well, there was that rumor that there was going to be a 4-hour cut of the Rise of Skywalker release on Disney Plus a few years ago, and I really would like to see what that movie was about.
I would rather fall down a flight of fucking stairs than watch that. Are you kidding me?
I see both points. I think my problem here, though, is, and even rewatching it, like recounting, I realized I had this issue today. There's just too much in this movie. I mean, there's far too much going on. I mean, they really should have narrowed down what was happening. It's to the point where I'd say for me, like half the movie's forgettable because it's gas the whole movie. It doesn't ever slow down at all. And I don't like that for a Star Wars movie. I mean, there are always slow parts in Star Wars. There are, fun character moments. And to me, this movie was just nonstop, like go, 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 go. And I really hate that. So
yeah, especially the first sequence of the movie. Like, whoa, we're on a drag race. Like we're immediately going 100 miles an hour, and
right.
Nothing's explained.
Like,
it's like,
who are these dudes? He's like, just chopping up.
Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point. So,
oh well.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Anyone else have anything you want to add on Rise of Skywalker? I'm excited to read through the original Episode 9 script and, like you said, Seth, talk about it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a really good conversation about it.
So, all right, everyone. Well, don't forget you can find the show on both YouTube and on podcast services. If you're looking to watch the video version on YouTube, you can just go to bit.ly/frameskiplive. So that's bit.ly/frameskiplive. You can go subscribe to our YouTube channel there. You'll get a notification when we go live. And of course, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also find the audio version on pretty much any podcast service. Frameskip itself is on social media, pretty much on everything, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at frameskippod. I am on Twitter at Austin J. Eller. Seth, is that Seth the 90s kid? And George is that Shortbox Summary.
New episodes this Friday, baby.
Where can you find Coach?
I don't know.
He's
Grading
calling
papers.
He's podcasting from inside the house.
You can find Coach at school.
That's right. There you go.
You can find him on a bike somewhere.
Yep.
And maybe watching a Dallas Cowboys game.
This is your year, Coach.
You say that every year, brother.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for listening, watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Keep it metal.